Hey, have I told you lately that I love you? I want you to know that. I want you to know that. I was thinking about, I've made many trips up and down I-35, right? Yes, and you see along the highway, you see the shattered remains of blown out tires, that you got to avoid as you're going up and down I-35. And what's worse than that is when you're driving and you feel that kind of shake and you know that your tire maybe is headed for a blowout. And you know that if you have a blowout on the highway, you're not going to get to where you're going very fast. And it's going to cost you some money. And you know that at high speeds, you may not even survive, right? It's very dangerous. And a blowout basically means a sudden bursting. And it doesn't only happen with the tires on our vehicles. It can also happen in our relationships. It can also happen in our marriage. You can have marital blowouts. And so as we continue our series called Dare to Love, today we're going to talk about how we can prevent a blowout in your most important relationships. I'm talking specifically about marriage, but there's something for everybody here today. But let's talk about what causes these marriage blowouts. And the first thing is poor maintenance. And we've already talked about how important it is to follow your owner's manual for life. We've been talking about that a lot recently, but why don't we? Why don't we follow it? Well, maintenance takes time, right? And we don't have much time today, so we cut corners on our marriage maintenance. You can't rotate your tires while you're speeding down the highway at 70 miles an hour. Life comes at you very fast, and the faster you're going, the more dangerous the journey is going to be. And the problem is today, we are hydroplaning through life, and we are skimming over the surface of our most important relationships. We don't prioritize enough time to get face to face and knee to knee and just listen to each other. How do most couples communicate today? Well, through texts, right? We text and use emojis, and we have these abbreviations. What do the abbreviations even mean? I mean, help me out on this if you know. Like ROFL, what is that? Rolling on the floor, laughing. Yeah. SMH? IMHO, IYKYK. How about this one? This is funny. LOL. Is it laugh out loud, or is it lots of love? You got to know the difference. Okay? Listen, you cannot build a solid relationship on abbreviations and emojis. You got to have the full transcript, And while we're driving on busy boulevard, the conversation usually sounds something like this. How was your day? Fine. What's for dinner? IDK. What time is soccer practice? 6. I love you. I love you too, right? We get in the fast lane and we push the heartfelt conversations and the spiritual conversations onto the shoulder of the road. And then one day we look back in the rearview mirror and we see wreck after wreck in our marriage, and we wonder what went wrong. What happened is we were too busy speeding down busy boulevard, and we didn't make the necessary time to do the required maintenance for our marriage, and we sped right past what should have mattered most to us. We didn't cultivate our communication. But another cause of marriage blowouts is road hazards. You got to watch out because there are external objects on the road that will jump out and take out your tires. A few months ago, I was just on a road and I noticed this old truck, and there was this old pink, just ratty furniture that was loosely tied in the back of the truck. Actually, it was tied up, and I thought, that's interesting. That guy must know what he's doing, And we end up getting out on the highway, and I don't think about him again until I see the pink furniture flying toward my truck, and I didn't have time to swerve out of the way. So I ended up I had to hit it straight on so I didn't swerve and hit another car. But that happens in our marriages. I'm talking about the unexpected road hazards like bills you didn't realize were coming, debt, you lose your job, you have over-involved in-laws, you have unhealthy friends, you have a bad health diagnosis. You can be on cruise control down the highway of life, and out of the blue, something comes right at you that you did not expect. So you have to keep a lookout for those road hazards. But then also, another cause of these marital blowouts is unskilled drivers. They make you take a class and a test when you want to get a driver's license. But anybody can get married, right? And we never learn how to do it the right way. We never learned how to communicate the right way. And where did we learn? We learned some things from our family and from our friends, and they didn't know what they were doing either. And some of you didn't grow up in a family where people knew how to express love. It's like the wife who looked over at her husband and she said, "You never tell me that you love me." And he said, "I told you I loved you on the day we got married. And if I ever change my mind, I'll let you know." Okay? Listen, we didn't learn how to communicate. We didn't learn how to handle conflict in a healthy way. Maybe you grew up in a home where conflict was handled landmine style. And you saw your parents fight, but then they would take out these little shovels and they would dig holes and bury these landmines, and you would think the argument was over, and then one day you're just walking through the living room and boom, it's on, right? Maybe your parents handled conflict foxhole style. They wouldn't really deal with the issue. Instead, they would jump in the foxhole and they would hide. And maybe you found yourself handling conflict the same way. You said, "I'll never be like my mom. I'll never be like my dad." But now you do it the same way. Some of you learned the silent treatment style. What's wrong? Nothing. If you don't know what's wrong, that's on you. I'm not going to tell you. How do we learn to communicate and handle conflict in a healthy way? Well, Proverbs 24:3 says, "By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established." It takes wisdom and it takes understanding to have a strong marriage. Your marriage is going to be what you make it into. And if you put effort into it and you learn the right skills and you get the knowledge and you have wisdom that it takes to build a great relationship, you can have a great marriage. Even if it hasn't been great up till now, it can be. Let's talk about how to communicate, because most of our problems happen because we don't know how to communicate well. Or if we know how to do it, we don't do it. Did you know the average couple talks with each other an average of 4 minutes a day? That's less than 30 minutes a week. It's no wonder we have issues. We're not communicating. We're not talking. Think about that. Remember back in the day before you got married, and I'm thinking like way back when we actually had telephones that we would use to talk on, and we would talk on the phone. And then after a long time of talking, it would be, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Are you still there? Yeah. Okay. But then over time, now you see couples, they've been married for a while and they're sitting at a restaurant, and what are they doing? Like this. They're not talking. Okay. Men and women communicate very differently. Little girls develop language skills much faster than little boys. And it becomes a lifelong skill, right? What I'm saying is, yes, women talk a lot, okay? And so the average man, they say, speaks about 20,000 words a day. The average woman speaks around 30,000 words a day. So when they get together after working all day, what happens? He's used up all his words, and she's still got 10,000 more to go. Okay, but the bigger question is, what are we doing with the words that we do use? And so let's talk about that. The first thing, and this is one of my favorites, it's if you think it and it's good, say it. Okay, if you think it and it's good, say it. The fastest way to put the spark back into your marriage is to start affirming, appreciating, and admiring. You focus on your spouse's strengths instead of the weaknesses. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, so encourage each other and build each other up just as you all are already doing. And a lot of times we'll think something good, but we'll think, oh, she already knows. He already knows that. And so we hold back and we keep it inside. Don't hold back. No one has ever said, no thanks, I already have enough encouragement, I don't need any more. We always need more. And if you're not doing it, if you're not encouraging, who is? It is a hard world out there, and we are responsible for filling each other's tanks. So we compliment in public and we correct in private. You've seen this happen where a husband and a wife are telling a story, and he says, yeah, we got there at 5:00. And she says, no, it was 5:30. And then he says, and they were driving a red Mustang. And she says, no, honey, it was a blue Mustang. It's like, who cares what color the car was? It doesn't matter. You correct in private and compliment in public. Romans 12:10 says, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Okay, so we honor each other publicly. Don't put each other down in public. Lift each other up. When you say, I love you, I appreciate you, I'm so glad that I married you, I'm so grateful for you, over and over, you will actually start to feel that way, and they may actually start believing it. There was a lady who went to her lawyer, and she said, I don't want to just divorce my husband, but I want to destroy my husband for what he's done to me. He's hurt me for so long. And the attorney said, here's what I want you to do. While I'm preparing the papers, I want you to go back to him and I want you to compliment him every day. I want you to tell him how great he is, how good he is, what you appreciate about him. And then when I've got the papers finished, we'll serve them to him, and it'll come out of nowhere, and he will have fallen in love with you again, and this will devastate him. And so after a while, she calls back a month later and she says, cancel the divorce. I've fallen in love with my husband all over again. Okay? That's the power of encouragement. That's the power of affirmation of one another and lifting each other up. The second thing is think before you speak. You say, Pastor, I just tell it like it is. I'm just a straight shooter. Here's what Proverbs 29:11 says to you here. I love this in the King James Version. It says, a fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in till afterwards. Okay? So some of you right now, as I'm talking, you're already thinking, okay, here's what I'm going to tell him when we get in the car. I'm already locked and loaded, right? I've got to say it. Not so fast. Okay, think it through. Use the filter and process. You know, some people just love to hear themselves talk. And a lot of my preparation for standing up and preaching is figuring out what I'm not going to say. Okay, cutting out what I'm not going to say, and so I know what I need to say. And we should do the same thing in our marriage. Okay, third, listen more than you talk. Communication is a two-way street. So you ask questions and you listen for an answer. So often when someone is talking, we think we already know what they're going to say. And so we're already thinking about our response, and we're just waiting for that little pause in the conversation so we can get in what we want to say. And we're really not communicating. We're not responding to each other because we're not listening. Proverbs 18:13 says, to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. I've found I've gotten in the most trouble in my life where I talk before I process, before I think about it. James 1:19 says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. We do it opposite. We are slow to listen, and we are quick to speak, and we are quick to become angry. Okay? And so we need to listen more than we talk, but that's hard because listening doesn't come natural. It is a learned skill. One problem is we only hear about 20% of what is said. You have to listen with your eyes, not just with your ears. Because only 7% of communication is verbal. A lot of it, the rest of it is the tone of voice, the speed of the conversation, the volume level, facial expressions, and all of it, body language, it all goes together. And then we want to keep it positive. We keep it positive. Because, let's check this out. Think about the way we say things many times. We phrase things negatively. Think about the difference between somebody asks you to do something and you say, no problem, versus definitely. That's positive. Can do. I'll get that done. Or they'll say, somebody will ask, how's it going? And we go negative. We say, well, I can't complain. Okay? Instead of saying, things are going pretty good. That's positive. Can you say it in a positive way? And listen, you can be honest, okay, and you can be positive at the same time. Okay, I'm not talking about lying. I'm talking about believing. I'm talking about living by faith. Okay, that is believing that God is at work, that he's going to do something good, and saying, you know, I believe God can bring us through this. I believe God can move and he can give us the power. And I know that there are issues and there are some problems that we got to work on, but we've got God on our side, and we know that nothing is impossible for God. Proverbs 16:21 says this, the wise are known for their understanding, and pleasant words are persuasive. I'm never persuasive when I'm abrasive, okay? I want to be positive, keep it positive. Now, I've done some personal research on this, and I've discovered that it takes about 10 minutes to eat a regular size Bluebell ice cream cone. Okay? But it takes about 200 minutes of active cardio to burn off those 10 minutes of deliciousness. And the same thing is true in our communication. There is a 20-to-1 ratio that's happening. It takes 20 encouraging, positive, uplifting words just to overcome one negative look, one harsh word that I'm going to say. That is what I call the blue bell principle, okay? It's 20-to-1. And so when you say, you know what though, I'm just so mad and this is so good. This is such a good comeback and I just got to say it. I'm just going to put it out there. Well, go ahead. Just understand that it's going to take a lot of work on the other side in order to overcome what you've said. And you know, some people think that they're so great at just pointing out what is wrong. And that's not a skill. Finding fault is not a skill. What is a skill is finding the good. And don't just leave the conversation open-ended, but the way you close the conversation is very important as well. The way you leave it. And so I would say that as you're talking, and I would encourage you to find some time, even this week, to ask, to talk, and to listen, and to not get offended at the answers that you receive, but to listen and to learn and begin to make some changes. But at the end of the conversation, here's what you do. Even if you're upset, you affirm your commitment to the marriage. Even though I'm mad, even though I'm upset, even though I'm disappointed, I'm still committed. I'm committed to you in this marriage, and I'm committed to God. And then also affirm your commitment and your love for your spouse, because love is a choice. Can you be mad at somebody and still love them? Yes, you can. In fact, it's usually the people that we love the most who make us the maddest, right? And so we affirm that love. But then also, you can affirm your faith that God is going to help you through it. At least you're talking about it, right? You're talking, and that's better than most couples. And if you're talking about it, even if it's not all resolved, at least you're making some progress. It might be small, but with God's help, you're going to make it. You're going to continue to leave those lines of communication open. Some of you are saying, this is all hard. This is really hard. I don't know that I can do this. But let me tell you, the prize is worth the price, okay? And so, you know, when you're in conflict, the way we view conflict, many times we view it negative. But what can happen through conflict is you can begin to grow your relationship stronger. And so don't be afraid of conflict, but deal with it. Deal with it in a healthy way. And then I would say we need to practice reckless forgiveness. Practice reckless forgiveness, because every marriage needs massive doses of forgiveness on a daily basis. You know, the 3 hardest words to say in the English language, or phrases to say, are 1, I'm sorry, 2, I was wrong, and 3, Worcestershire sauce. Okay? It's hard to say, but you can do it. You can do it. Here's what Colossians 3:13 says. It says, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. It's not an option for those of us who have been forgiven by Jesus, because you will never have to forgive anyone else more than you've already been forgiven by Jesus. And you are never more like God than when you're forgiving. And I've got here, let's look at this. We've got one of these blown out tires, and this one's in rough shape. Thank you so much. This one's in such rough shape, but I'm telling you, some of you in your marriages are just a few miles away from this. okay? Because you haven't been taking the steps to do the proper maintenance. And you've got to take the time to do the required maintenance on your marriage and learn how to communicate clearly and learn how to fight fair, or you will have a blown out marriage that will never get you to the place that God is leading you in your marriage and in your life. But let me tell you this, we talk about a blowout. Did you know there's another better definition for a blowout? I'm talking about a blowout that is a big celebration, that is a big party, and it's a celebration of the goodness of God and his kind of love that can happen in your life when you begin to do it God's way. I want to give you, because we talked about a maintenance schedule. You say, what is that? What would that look like? Okay, this isn't in your notes, so you may just want to write these down. Okay, what would a maintenance schedule look like? Well, first, there's a lot of things that you're going to have to do daily. You're going to pray together. Men, this is one of the hardest things. It's so, you got these big, strong men, but they're afraid to reach out and grab their wife's hand and say, honey, let's pray. And I'm telling you, she's going to receive that. She's going to receive that when you pray together. Okay, you know, if you look at the divorce rate, you'll see that that marriages, we have heard this, they're falling apart. About half of all marriages fall apart. And that goes for marriages inside of the church and outside of the church. But did you know that marriages that pray together, the divorce rate is almost zero for couples that pray together? Okay, and then we're gonna forgive daily. We're gonna forgive daily. We're gonna encourage each other daily. We're gonna talk with each other. One practical way to do that is just spend some time at the end of the day, just catching up, making sure that you're keeping those lines of communication open. And most importantly, beyond talking is listening, but then also daily, some physical touch, okay? Physical touch, whether it's holding hands, embracing, or wherever it leads you, okay? But then also weekly, you're gonna attend church together. You're gonna be in God's family with God's people. You're gonna be growing together spiritually, okay? And then also there's bi-weekly, that means every other week. Have a date night together, no kids, okay? Just the two of you. And the goal there is to have fun together, to enjoy one another. And I know the pushback is to say this, we're too busy. Well, not when the blowout happens. When the blowout happens, it's too late. And so you gotta make time now for what's most important. And I would just say, let God come in between you. Put God in the center of your marriage. Most marriage problems would be solved overnight if both the husband and the wife would just get down on their knees and pray and talk to God and say, yes, God, I want to follow you. I want to do I want to be who you've called me to be and who you're making me to be. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And you better believe if a husband is filled with that fruit of the Spirit and a wife is filled with that fruit of the Spirit, then there's no possible way you can have irreconcilable differences with each other. And so for many people, maybe today, the first step is coming back home and putting Jesus in the center of your life. For some of you today, it is actually taking the step of putting your faith and your trust in Jesus. Listen, you need to decide at some point, do I want to pretend to have a good marriage, or do I want to actually have a strong marriage? It takes maturity, it takes humility, it takes honesty to ask for help when you need it. I want us to say this week's power verse together in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 2. We want to memorize this week. We want to focus on this. Put it in a place on your dashboard, on your refrigerator, your bathroom mirror, somewhere where you can see it, and commit this into your life and your heart this week. Let's say it out loud together right now. Come on. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. He set an example for us of how to love. Jesus did that, but he set that ultimate example when he laid down his life and he offered his life as a sacrifice. And of course, we are to sacrifice ourselves for one another, particularly in our marriage. But I don't want you to miss the fact that Jesus gave his life so that you can have life, so that you can be forgiven, so that you can have a right relationship with God and you can have a right relationship with the people around you when we follow his example and we dare to love the way that Jesus loved. And so as we close right now, I want us to pray together. Thank God for his sacrifice. Thank God for the gift of marriage that is meant to bring so much joy and fulfillment, and yet many times there's so much pain around this area in our life. So God, I pray right now that you're bringing healing, you're bringing hope into our marriages. God, today that you're drawing us to yourself, that as we're coming closer to you, God, we're drawing closer to one another. And for some in this room today, you would say, today is my day. I'm ready to come home to Jesus. I'm ready to surrender my life, turn from my sin and turn to you, Jesus. If that's you today, then would you pray along with me this prayer that's just beginning a conversation with God, that you would say, dear Lord Jesus, I'm sorry for my sin. I ask that you would forgive me. I need you in my life. Please change me from the inside out. Fill me with your spirit. Make me part of your forever family. Thank you for dying for me. Starting today, I'm choosing to live for you. Thank you for saving me. In Jesus' name, amen.